So now that you already have your first campaign running, you need to test it. You need to know when to stop it or when to scale it. The most important metrics you need to look into are the click-through rate, the CPMs, and of course the view contents, add to carts, and the purchases. Let's say that you let a campaign run for 3 days and the CTR, the click-through rate, is below 1%. The CPMs, the cost per thousand impressions, is above $20. You have only a couple of view contents and no add to carts. That means that either your ad is not good or that their audience is not good. Usually the metrics I like to have is for 3 days, I like to have at least 50 view contents, 10 add to carts, and 2 purchases. Of course, this is not gonna happen always like this. Sometimes you might have 5 purchases on the first 3 days, sometimes you might have 0 purchases, but you have a lot of add to carts. This means that you're probably charging a price of shipping. So when people add to cart and then they see the price of the shipping, they don't want to proceed because they don't want to pay for the shipping. But if your click-through rate is low, and if you're not having enough view contents and add to carts, you should just stop that ad set. And for the ad sets, they have a click-through rate, so above 2 or 3%. You have a good amount of view content, some add to carts, and especially a sale. If you have sales, that means that that product and that audience is actually scalable. You can let some campaigns run that don't have purchases as long as you're seeing add to carts and you have a good click-through rate and a low cost per 1,000 impressions and even a low cost per click. That's a good sign. That means that people are interested, but inside that audience still nobody took the time to actually make a purchase. In your margin, when you sell your product, you always need to divide it in 3. So this means that if I'm selling a product for $30, this means that I can buy it on my supplier for $10, including shipping, that I can spend $10 per purchase and I make $10 profit. If you're having, let's imagine that I was having a $20 cost per purchase on my website, I'm not making any money because I spent $10 getting it to the supplier, then I'm spending $20 to acquire a customer, that's $30, so I'm basically breaking even. With this said, if you're having in fact ad sets that are having purchases and add to carts, what you do is you duplicate those ad sets, you increase the budget by 50%. You duplicate that asset inside the same campaign and you just increase the budget on the duplicated one. So let's say that your first ad set was running for $10, you duplicate it and then you put $15. You don't change anything, you don't change the interest, you don't change the behavior that you choose, you simply duplicate it. Before, what I used to do is I used to increase the budget on the ad set straight away, but what this does is that it messes up with the optimization. Usually ad sets take 3 days to optimize again. So what I do now is I just duplicate and increase the budget on the duplicated one. I don't change anything. If the new duplicated one is going well, you duplicate it another time with, instead of $15, with $20. You go progressively until you maybe have ad sets spending $100 a day. It doesn't have to be an exact formula. Then you can duplicate the next one for 20 or 25. Then the next one you duplicate and you set the budget for 30, then 35, and so on and so on. So this is basically how I scale these first testing ad sets.